from the beyond and haunting interviews with your cringe-worthy host, Woody G. Watts. Welcome to Hill City Paranormal.
This is Woody Watts with Hill City Paranormal, and I am always up for a good story. And one of the best storytellers I know, period, is my father-in-law. He has told some spine-chilling tales in his day. So one day, my wife was up there with her iPhone, and she said, "Dad, tell me some stories." And did he ever? So today's episode, I am taking all the stories from that day, and we're calling them the Glenn Files.
You gotta go back into the setting. The setting is a 3-bedroom house, and this little hallway leads to the door. Daddy was gone coon hunting, and there was a noise at the door. And so Mama thought, well, this might be Daddy coming home. And when she got to the door to open it, this claw came in the door. And this door is 6 foot tall. The white claws and white fur come into the door. And Mama is pushing against the door to close it. And all of us kids were screaming and hollering, even Edith and Betty, our 2 sisters, were helping Mama push against the door. And I remember the claw scraping down the door, and when it got to the door latch, which was metal, it actually cut the hand of whatever it was and ejected back. And that's when she was able to close the door. And I remember was there was 4 claw marks, at least 1/4 of an inch deep, in the inside of the door where it was pulling down on it. And we all gathered back once Mama was able to close the door. And it wasn't about maybe 10, 15 minutes later, Daddy came home. And he noticed his coon dogs were raising Cain outside because they were smelling something that shouldn't have been there. And Daddy was, remember, raising hell at the dogs to be quiet, do this, that, and the other. And he came in the house, and we were all in one room, and Mama was telling him what happened. And Daddy, he didn't believe it at first until she said, "Let me show you this." And then that's when we walked to the door, and there's some claw marks coming down the door. And Daddy said, "My God, I don't know what could have done that." And we don't even know what it was, but it was 7 kids and Mama pushing against the door, and we were barely able to hold it closed enough to where, and it didn't, when it cut its hand, cut its claw, or whatever it was, when that, the old house has them old metal door latches that's on the inside, and you lock it with a skeleton key. And so that was proof enough, and that was one of my earlier memories, but with Daddy being a sharecropper, we always lived in old, dilapidated homes. So, when you got newspaper being put on the walls to keep the snow from blowing in the house, I laugh at it now, but such good memories of 5 of us sleeping in one bed, 3 pointed one direction, 2 pointed in the others. So you slept with somebody's foot right up against your head. But that was all of us kids, though. But I wish I could remember all of the other stories. That's where, when you get a chance to get all the brothers talking at one time, then that triggers memories. Ronnie and I were coming back from a football game, and where we lived at over on the old Anderson plantation, the hot service stopped 1 mile before you get to the house, because the road was a dirt road, and the guys that had cars back at that time didn't want to drive down that dirt road to get their car dirty.
Yeah.
So Ronnie and I, it's about 11 o'clock at night, and somewhat of a full moon, but not quite. It was enough light there to where you could see, in front of you while walking down the road. And as the road goes down a hill, crosses a creek, and then it runs along the creek, and then it goes up the hill to the house. So you can guesstimate from the mailbox to the creek is about a half mile. And then from the creek along the road going up the hill to the house is another half a mile. So Ronnie and I were just carrying on all kind of crazy stuff, talking about the football game we just played, and we were talking also at the same time about how sorry it was people wouldn't give us a ride, that we had to walk. And see, Daddy never supported any of us boys playing sports. Your job was to do chores on the farm. So if you played sports, you were on your own as far as transportation. But anyhow, to get back to the story, Ronnie and I were about, 100 yards from the creek where the bridge crosses. And in this bottom, it's nothing but brush, nothing but, shallow trees, small trees. And we could hear the water running in the creek, but we also heard something cross the creek. Ronnie looked over at me, and I said, Bo, did you hear that? And his nickname was Bojack. So Ronnie said, yeah, I heard that too. And you got to know that my brother Ronnie had set the state record in the 440. He could flat head fly. I mean, that boy could run. What I remember him saying, he looked over at me, he said, Glenn, I think it's about time we get to moving, because whatever that is getting closer to us. So we took off at a trot. It was a pretty good trot. But he kept getting louder and louder behind us. And I looked over my shoulder, and all I could see was 2 red eyes. And I told Ronnie, I said, Ronnie, we gotta go, boy. And anyway, to make a long story short, when we made the turn, which was about a quarter of a mile from the house, I remember kicking rocks on Ronnie because I was out running. And by the time we got halfway up the hill, maybe 200 yards from the house, I remember Ronnie grabbing my hand. And he was literally pulling me at that time, because whatever it was had come mighty close to him, because he was behind me. And, well, it was just pure adrenaline then. I only wish they could have put a stopwatch on us running on that rocky gravel road, and how fast we went up that hill. And when there was about 8 steps going up from the yard up the steps into the porch, and it's a concrete steps. It has a screen door on it. I remember reaching for the handle of the screen door, opening the screen door, diving into the porch. Ronnie dove in on top of me, and whatever it was broke the screen door, slammed into the screen door right behind Ronnie. We had made such a commotion about 11:30 that night, when it was, that Daddy got out of bed and threatened to beat us to death if we didn't stop all of that noise. And we was telling Daddy what was going on, and Daddy said, yeah, I don't know what it is out there, but he says, I've already lost 2 calves. Oh, there's many stories about living on that farm over there. We were all going to bed that night, and as like I say, there's 3 beds in this bedroom, and each one of us were assigned to. Ronnie and Preston would sleep in this bed, and Robert and Leroy sleep in that bed, and the little baby brother would sleep in his bed along with the 2 cousins that were living with us at the time, and old 2-story farmhouse. And the bed that Robert and Leroy and them were sleeping in was at the window. And Brother Robert, he looked out the window and saw this, whatever it was, creature walking around the car. And the reason we know that, our little dogs were cowering up under the car, barking at it. And this thing was stalking the dogs. And it was, to make the story true, Robert called in there and told Mama and Daddy, who were sleeping in their bedroom, said, Daddy, I'm going to be shooting out the window at this thing that's out there that's trying to kill our dogs. And I remember Daddy saying, yeah, go ahead. And unbeknown to us, the rifle that Robert had was a .30-30. We thought he was going to be shooting a .22 or something. Well, anyway, he raised the window, stuck the gun out the window, and shot this thing. And that was all, and the dogs quieting down, everything, but we didn't go out there because it was dark. Well, the next morning, when Daddy got up to go to do his chores on the farm and getting the rest of us up for us to do our chores, well, this thing was dead, laying beside the car. And, it stunk to high heaven. And so Daddy said, I don't even know if that's a dog. Said, look at the tush on this thing. It's unreal. Said, it's got the biggest canine teeth I've ever seen. So he called the game warden, and the game warden came by, and the game warden, I remember we heard him over talking to Daddy. He said, this animal, I've never seen it before. Said, it's bigger than a dog. It's actually bigger than a wolf. Said, but we can't understand what the smell is coming off of this animal. And they took and said, well, what we need to do is to get some university or somebody to come in here to study this animal. And, the game warden took the animal. And we don't know to this day what it was. They never did report it. We never heard anything else. But what it started was pretty much an epidemic of stray dogs getting together, wild dogs getting together. And the main pack leader of these animals was an Airedale, big old shaggy-haired Airedale. And we ended up at one time, we had a gang of at least 8 to 10 wild dogs that was killing any animal that came on that property over there. They killed calves. We had one guy bring in 4 beagles that was doing some rabbit hunting. A gang of dogs killed all of his beagles while he was hunting. They actually chased Daddy up on the hay wagon when he was feeding the cows, because he had the tractor and a trailer. Daddy was pulling the hay where he fed the cows. They had him pinned up on the trailer. This Airedale, they also, I built what they call an old Batmobile. It was a 53 DeSoto that I cut, and it was nothing but a frame, a little bit of a firewall, and the engine, the radiator. And everything else was just wide open with an old bench seat in it. And they caught me down in the lower bottom one day, started surrounding my old car, which was wide open. And the tail end of the car is so light it couldn't get much traction because all the tires would just spin. And the only way I kept from being eaten alive by these dogs was I did figure eights with the old car. Kept spinning around and around doing donuts and tried to get a figure eight until I could get the car straight enough and get on dry enough ground to drive away. And I finally was able to escape them. I did get some traction and I got away from them. And another, to make a long story short, is I ended up killing 8 wild dogs on my own, which I'd come in from school in the afternoon and I'd go down to the barn and set up in the barn and wait for them dogs to come out. And I ended up killing 8 of them. Daddy killed one with a pitchfork because it attacked him when he was trying to load the hay up to go feed the cows. And so, we all were real concerned about wild dogs, but all of these wild dogs came into being after we had killed this animal that looked, it actually looked like a wolf with wild boar teeth. If you can imagine tushes coming up like a wild boar out of a dog's mouth. One vicious looking animal. And so, I mean, what was weird about that, I wish we'd found out what that animal was. What crossbreed or what hybrid type of animal that was. But that should be documented somewhere back there. And all of this happened in 1959 and 1960. In that era, when we lived on the farm over there. Living on the same farmhouse, it was, Ronnie and I were there at the house at night, and we were doing our homework. And the way this living room that we lived in, or the dining room rather, Daddy always had the shotguns on deer feet. Going up with the wall there, and he hung the shotguns up on it, and all of us, took turns using them. Well, I was facing the side door. Ronnie was in front of me. We were both doing our homework, and I looked over Ronnie's shoulder, and I saw the doorknob turn. It was turning. And I took and told Ronnie, I said, Ronnie, I said, somebody's at the door. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, yep, the doorknob's turning. And I see, you could look through the window and you could see all the shotguns hanging on the wall, which was right behind me. And I said, Ronnie, I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. I said, but it's still trying to turn. So I got up and reached and got Daddy's pump shotgun. I always kept shells in the loading magazine, but none in the chamber. Well, I ratcheted one in the chamber. When I ratcheted in the chamber, somebody kicked the door. And I drew the gun down. Ronnie jumped to one side, and I heard it take off because he couldn't break down the door. I told Ronnie, I said, Ronnie, you open the door. Ronnie run over there, unlocked it, opened the door, and I saw a shadow running off of the porch through the yard. And as a dumb kid would do, I shot at it. And didn't know if I hit it or not. But what I do know, that was a 4-string barbed wire fence out there. Whatever it was, ran through 4 strands of barbed wire fence. And I called hell because I shot at something when I shouldn't have. Right. And I'm just thankful that I didn't kill it or whatever. But whatever it was, I scared it enough to where it ran through a 4-strand barbed wire fence. And you have to know that the prison camp, Camp 9, is just about a half a mile from the farm. And to this day, I think it was probably a convict who escaped from Camp 9 and was looking for a way to get some kind of weapons to use to whatever. But that was a weird day and a weird night. Well, Preston and I, we had went to Fairfax, Virginia, up through Culpeper, Luray. What's the town outside of
Manassas?
Warrington?
Warrington, yeah.
We went through Culpeper, Warrington, but we were coming back, and it was approximately 11:30 at night. We passed through Warrington into Culpeper, and we were on 29 in the farm area. There was nothing but these big farms along 29 south of Culpeper. And this bright light was off to our right. And I told Preston, who was driving, I said, wonder where in the world is that bright light coming from, or what is it? And Preston said, oh gosh, I don't know, it's gotta be some kind of street light or whatever, a farm light. But the light kept getting closer and closer. It got approximately 50 yards from us. And it was like looking into the headlights of a train. That's how bright it was. The car cut off.
Nuh-uh.
Everything shut off. Because I looked over to Preston, I said, Preston, let's get out of here. And he said, the car's dead. It will not. The car is shut off. We are just drifting. And then everything went into amnesia. You can't remember anything. Only thing I remember is being flooded with this bright light. Then all of a sudden, the bright light disappeared, came back to consciousness, so did Preston. The car started back up on its own, and we went on down the road. And I remember talking to Preston. I said, "What was that?" He said, "I don't remember." And to this day, we don't know how long we were in that suspended animation. Don't know for whatever reason, but what I do remember is the car starting back up, the headlights came back on, and as if we were never stopped. The car was still rolling. And I've heard other stories similar to that. But what is so weird about it is I remember the light and I remember the car cutting off, but any of the time frame in between is not there. But the memory of the light coming on and going away is the only solid memory I have without thinking myself, am I making this up? But no, this actually happened. It was weird. We were in, I think we were in Preston's Barracuda.
I remember that car.
Yeah, the green Barracuda car.
Yep, I remember that.
So that is, what is it, 50 or 47 years ago? And it's just like it happened yesterday.
Be sure to check out our website at hillcityparanormal.com and call our haunted hotline at 701-HAUNTED or 701-428-6833 with your spooky tale. Thank you for listening to Hill City Paranormal.